Hello and welcome. In this video I will talk about how you can write your notes for an academic text that you have read. Taking notes is important for your studies as it consolidates your reading and enhances your ability to recall the information contained in the text at a later point. It might seem counterintuitive, but your brain remembers what your hands have written better than what your eyes have read. Another advantage of taking good notes is of course that they are a great first point of reference if you have to revisit a text or when preparing for an exam or writing an essay. Writing up notes, however, is very time consuming. Therefore, it is important to clarify for yourself why you read the text in the first place. What value will you get out of writing notes for the text? Is it a text for a seminar? Then notes are essential for preparing properly for that seminar. Is it notes for your own research? Well, then maybe consider the diminishing returns that you get out of investing too much time into writing notes for everything that you've decided to read. A last consideration has to do with the medium upon which you write your notes. A computer or phone might seem convenient, but it is recommendable to write your notes on paper. Don't be cheap. Invest in a proper notebook and treat your notes as the investment that they are. What are notes? In principle, notes are a condensed version of the text that you have read, but with another purpose than the text itself. The explicit purpose of the text was to communicate an argument. Your notes, on the other hand, have the explicit purpose of enabling you to recite this argument, but also more importantly, to address the particular questions that motivated you to read the text in the first place. This latter point is important to think about when you write up your notes, because it determines the way in which you should structure them. If you're reading a text because you're trying to map out an academic discourse, for instance, then you need to write your notes in such a way that you can trace argumentative points and positions across different texts. Or say you are reading a text guided by a particular theoretical framework, then it's a good idea to base your notes on this particular framework. Writing your notes. When writing your notes, it's a good idea to divide them up into different sections. Start by noting all the formal information about the text. The title and subtitle, the author, the year of publication, the number of pages, and perhaps a table of content with page numbers. And yes, writing out the subsections of a journal article or chapter tells you a lot about the disposition and choices that the author made while writing the text. This is especially helpful when you have to start producing text yourself. A section that all notes should contain is the argument of the text summarized in a paragraph or so. One way of doing this in a very formalized way is to state the primary question of the text along with the answer formulated as shortly as possible. And by short, I really mean short. It shouldn't be more than a sentence that contains a single theoretical concept. This is a good way to check whether you have gotten the argument of the text. If your re-articulation of the argument is too long and convoluted, involving multiple concepts, then perhaps you don't have the best understanding of the text yet. And then it's time to go back and read again. Once you have that detail sorted, you can move on to the more substantive notes where you break the text into its individual parts. There are many ways to organize your notes when it comes to the contents of the text. To have a very thorough set of notes, it might be worthwhile to go section by section and paragraph by paragraph, maybe even sentence by sentence at times. It is worth doing this at least once, I think, to really try and dissect a piece of writing. Try it. You'll learn a lot. Other times, it's possible to succinctly spell out the different parts of the argument in a few steps. Depending on both the genre and the scientific discipline, including the nature of the text, like is it theoretical or empirical, there are different things that are worth paying attention to when you write up your notes. For instance, if you're writing notes for a theoretical text, then having a clear idea about the main concepts, how they are defined and related to one another, along with what kind of abstractions and assumptions the author makes, can be good fixation points in writing up your notes. Another tip is to draw out diagrams of these conceptual maps. They can be helpful when you have to communicate the contents of the text to others. In addition, always quote verbatim the most important information contained in the text, like, say, questions, arguments, and definitions. Here your annotation or markup of the text itself really comes in handy. When you do so, always note the page number so that you can find it again easily when you have to do your own writing. A third section is sometimes warranted and can be helpful, especially when preparing for seminars or academic writing, like essays or dissertations. This could, for instance, be your critiques of the argument that the text makes, or questions for further research that you have formulated based on your reading of the text, or again, simply new ideas that you might have based on your reading. In conclusion, your notes are a condensed version of the text that you have read. There are many ways of writing up notes, but generally I would recommend splitting them into sections of formal information, substantive contents, and lastly, critiques and questions. And remember, notes require considerable time and effort to make, and you should therefore do so with as much care as you can. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching.